Hi everyone, I'm Dad.
I'm daughter.
And we are...
Dad and daughter Formula One Zero.
I really like that one. That was a good one. I think that might be actually your best intro yet.
I know, right? I'm just so good at that.
You're very good at them. I will say that you are good at them. All right, so today we're going to talk about another very important issue that's come out recently. We are going to talk about... Now you've got to post. You find the most random things in my office that you could possibly find while we're doing videos. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is the all-important, terrible things that are going on in the FIA, which is the governing body of Formula One and motor racing, with their new rules about behavior related to drivers in terms of their language, political beliefs, personal beliefs, and things that they say out in public, and the fines that they're going to give them. You want to talk about that? I like it.
What?
So let's. What?
Nothing.
Did you say? Did you have an option? You don't have an option. That's what we're talking about in our video today. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these fines. So last season, do you remember what happened with Max in one of the conferences?
No.
Okay, so Max was talking about his car, and he did not like something about...
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was...
And he used a word. Do you remember what the word started with?
An F.
With an F word related to the car. So he was talking about the car. He wasn't talking about a person. He wasn't saying anything about anybody. He's talking about the car. And he was saying the car is kind of bad, right? It's kind of jacked up. And he ended up getting a fine, and he ended up getting community service.
Which isn't that bad.
But when you really think about it, you're like, come on. I let one word slip, and that's what happens. Imagine if I got mad every single time you said the wrong word, or that you said an alternative to a bad word. Because sometimes you might say those. You try slipping them in sometimes from time to time, and I have to be like, hey. We don't say those kinds of things, right? But imagine if I said that, and I fined you, and I told you, you owe me $50, plus you've got to go and rake up all the leaves outside.
We don't have that many leaves outside?
We don't have that many leaves outside. But imagine if I said that. Would you think that that's fair or unfair?
Unfair.
You would think that that's absolutely unfair, right? Well, Max thought that was very unfair, because then you know what happened a couple of weeks later?
What?
Charles, in one of the press conferences, he also uses a curse word.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happens to Charles?
He gets fined.
He gets fined, but he doesn't get any community service.
Oh, that is so unfair.
It is very, very unfair. So one of the things then that we have to think about is, number one, are fines and punishments given out fairly? That's number one.
No.
They're not. And number two, are these things really punishable? What do you think?
What does punishable mean?
You know what punishable means, that they get in trouble for it.
Yes.
You think they should happen?
No.
So
No.
they do or don't?
Don't.
They don't. So they shouldn't get punished. Now, let's say that they were using it excessively. Let's say that they were just going on a rant and they were talking about a person and they were using a lot of curse words. Do you think maybe then it would be okay to give them a fine?
Yes.
That's exactly right. So imagine, like at school, has it ever happened that one of your friends has maybe said like a bad word sometimes?
Actually, no.
No? Okay. Well, okay. No. Or like at somewhere else, right, that you're at, and somebody says a bad word.
Okay.
And do they get in trouble? Maybe they just, hey, they get their, attention called to them, and that's it. And they get told, don't do that ever again. And fine. But that's where it ends. But now we're saying, hey, if you do it, because now with the new regulations, and I'm going to put up the new regulations right here, so you guys are going to see those new regulations.
It is so crazy.
They are absolutely crazy.
What are you going to get me?
For the very first fine, right? So the first time that it happens, where they use inappropriate behavior or use inappropriate language that's directed at an individual, or they use curse words, or they also talk about FIA members, so like the president, council members, or anybody else, what's going to be the punishment?
They have to pay 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't hear me wrong, guys.
40,000
euros.
They're going to pay 40,000 euros for the first fine, right?
Mhm.
And then the second time that it happens, what happens?
They have to pay 80,000
Uh-huh.
euros.
And what else happens?
And they get a 1 month suspension
So they get a 1-month suspension during the season.
during the season.
If it happens a third time, what
They
happens?
get 120,000 euros.
A euro fine. They
Euro
don't get the
fine.
money. I wish they got the money. But they get a fine.
They get a fine and a 1 month suspension again.
And
And
what happens to their points?
Oh, they get a point deduction.
They get point deductions. And it doesn't say how many point deductions. It just
Probably
says
like 10.
so imagine if a midfield team that only gets 17 or 18 points in the season, all of a sudden now gets 5 or 10 points taken away from them because a driver was cussing. And they were cussing and saying something about a car. And they used one curse word. And it happens 3 times to them. And now all of a sudden they got to pay the fine. They get a suspension. And they get points taken away. This is
What?
ridiculous.
That is so unfair.
It's absolutely ridiculous. In my opinion, it's ridiculous. What do you think?
I think it's very ridiculous. But I also think that there are going to be some teams
Mm-hmm.
that are going to be fined.
There's going to be some teams that are going to be fine. So
Not
can you
like
think?
they're gonna be like $120, 120,000 euros a week.
Oh, come on. That's way too much. Okay. But for instance, Max has been very vocal about he never agreed with the punishments. If you remember, after he got that punishment, he was very vocal about like, well, I just don't want to say anything because I don't want to get in trouble. So if you guys want to ask me questions, let's do it outside and I'll hold my own press conference. Lewis was very vocal about what happened to Max. And he was saying, if I was Max, I wouldn't go and do the community service and I wouldn't pay the fine. I wouldn't care. Others have also said it was ridiculous. Lando also said it was ridiculous that happened. So we're finding that the drivers are not happy with the FIA's rules. They're not happy with the FIA's ways of handling things. And this is something that's been going on for a couple of seasons now, but now it's kind of getting out of control. Now, a lot of talk is going on that the president of the FIA, right, he doesn't like anybody to say anything bad about him. He doesn't like to be critiqued.
Okay,
So, in his eyes, if you talk bad about the FIA, him, or any other member, he's going to fine you. You don't even have to use a curse word.
Oh.
And then you're going to be giving him a suspension. And then you're also going to get points taken away. So what does that end up happening? What ends up happening? What is he hoping is going to happen?
That you never do that again.
That you're never going to say anything bad about him. And you're just going to be like, okie dokie, anything that you say, we're going to follow right along. And we're going to be A-okay with it. Yes, yes, sir, right?
Which we all know that won't happen.
That's not going to
They're
happen.
F1 drivers.
They are F1 drivers. They're driving at over 200 miles an hour. So imagine going, woo, and then sometimes almost hitting a wall. Wouldn't you just kind of instinctively just say a curse word?
I would.
I would. What about you all?
Even though I
Would
know.
you all say curse words? I think so. And if you didn't say a curse word, you'd probably be like, oh man, like this was crazy. But the likelihood that it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it is that this all plays out this season. And I'm interested to see what's going to end up happening with the Drivers Association in terms of how they're going to be handling the president of the FIA. Because they need to do something about it. They need to take a stand.
I think
Mm-hmm.
this president of the FIA, don't know his name,
Mm-hmm.
is being very unfair.
Okay.
Like, why on earth would I have to pay such a big fine?
Yeah.
Like, it's a $120,000 fine.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. It's absolutely bonkers. Things are getting way out of control. So maybe we're going to see a walkout. Maybe we'll see the drivers not even showing up. Maybe we'll see the drivers not even wanting to participate in press conferences.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be, like, Max is not going to, I feel
Yeah.
that Max is not going to participate. Lando's not going to participate.
Yeah.
Charles is not going to participate.
It's going to be interesting.
The best drivers,
Uh-huh.
because they always curse, aren't gonna participate.
Well, I think just instinctively everybody curses. Yuki's famously known to curse. Isaac Hajar, who's joining Yuki in Visa RB, he curses a lot also. So we're gonna see what happens. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
At the end, I think everybody is at least gonna pay at the least $200. 200 euros.
200 euros. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how those fines are going to take place. So we'll see if they're even going to be consistent with it or not. All right. Anything else that you want to say before we end for tonight?
Don't forget to like. That's 1. Subscribe. That's 2. And spin it to
Oh.
those notifications, everybody.
Bye.
Are you okay?
Yes.